Hey there, and welcome to another Slightly Redneck video here. Thanks again for watching. It's Thanksgiving Day. We've eaten, everybody's gone home, the mess has been cleaned up, and I'm left with, a big carcass of a bird, just nothing but bones and some skin and stuff. So, what do you do with that? Well, that's what the video today is going to be about, or this video anyway. We're going to be making turkey stock. This is very easy to do, and it's great to have around. It's much better than any kind of chicken stock you can buy from the stores. You get canned stock or any of that kind of stuff. This is going to be much, much better, and again, super easy to make. No reason not to do it. So let me quit babbling on here and we'll get right to it, and I'll show you what we need to do. Alright, so you can see here I've got a stock pot here, pretty good sized stock pot, and I've taken all the bones, all the carcass, all the skin that was left over, any of the fat and any of that kind of stuff that was left over in the bottom of the pan. I threw it all in this stock pot, a couple of cloves of garlic in there with it. Cover it with water, but before I cover it the rest of the way, I'm going to go ahead and throw some vegetables in. What I've got is a couple of carrots, I think 2 carrots here, just roughly chopped. You're not going to be eating these vegetables, it doesn't matter. A couple stalks of celery, you can leave the leaves on them, you don't have to worry about any of that. Throw all that in there, and an onion all quartered up, and like I said, a couple of cloves of garlic. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with water, and then I'm going to simmer it for a really, really long time. Probably, 12 hours. I'm probably going to let it go just overnight and just let it simmer overnight. So let me get this filled up with water, get it on the stove, and get it going, and I'll kind of show you the next step here. Alright, you can see I've got all this covered with water, all the vegetables, all the bones, and everything. And I've got it up to a simmer. One thing I want to point out here is that this is a simmer. You want just a simmer, not a rolling, raging boil. You're going to lose too much water if you bring it up to a boil. I'm actually going to have to watch this for a little while. I'll turn it down just a little bit because it'll probably start boiling a little bit higher. But I want to keep it at just a nice, gentle simmer. And you want to do that, keep it there for, 8 hours, 10 hours. I'm probably going to let this just go overnight, about 12 hours, and take care of it in the morning. So not much else to do. Just let it boil, or let it simmer, for a long time, and then we'll strain all that stuff off and get the liquid out of it. And we'll come back in the morning here and I'll show you how I do that and the next step to skim the fat off and that kind of stuff. So it's the next morning here, and you can see this is reduced down quite a bit. I've already killed the heat to it. It actually reduced down a whole lot. I added some additional water to it, late last night to fill it up. If you don't want it to reduce down as much, put a lid on it before you go to bed. That'll keep it from reducing quite as much. But I kind of like it reduced down a lot, because then it's just you're going to form a stock that if you reduce it down that much, it's going to be more like almost like a demi-glaze, and I'll show you what I mean here in a few minutes. But it takes up a lot less room in the freezer that way. You don't need to use as much of it whenever you use it. So anyway, what I'm going to do now, I've killed the heat. It's still pretty hot, but I've got a bowl here with a strainer inside. I'm just going to pour a lot of this stock in through here to strain out the big chunks, and then we'll take the next step here. So let me go ahead and do some of that, see if I can get this on camera where you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to pour it. Alright, got most of that out of there. So you can see what I'm left with is, in this pot, just a bunch of trash, all that stuff. It's all the leftover bones and vegetables and everything like that. And then in this bowl here, all I gotta do is lift this strainer up here, and I'm left with my stock. Now I'm going to strain that one more time. Put this where you can see what's going on here. And there is my finished stock. I'm going to strain that one more time. What I'm going to do is strain it into some mason jars and put it in the fridge and let it cool off. And once it cools off, all that fat will rise to the top when you skim that fat off. Probably take a couple of mason jars to fill it up. You can do whatever you want. You can just leave it in this bowl and put it in the fridge if you wanted to, but I find it easier to work with in mason jars. So I've got another a little strainer here. I'm just going to set this over there, ladle the stock into there to get out more of the solid pieces and chunks. So let me get started on that here in a second, and then I'll show you kind of what the next step is here. All right, so these have been cooling for a couple hours in the fridge, and I've got two jars is what I got out of it, and you can see, all the fat, all that yellow is all the fat that rose to the top. So what I'm going to do is just skim that off, and if you let it chill for a while, it's so thick that it's so much easier to get off there. And you just skim it right off the top here. If you get just a dollop or two of fat left in there, no big deal. But you do want to get the majority of it out of there. So anyway, that's really about all there is to making stock. Once you get the fat skimmed off the top, then you can store it in your refrigerator for up to a month. If it's going to be longer than that, I would suggest freezing it. It'll stay in the freezer for a year easily. And freeze it in smaller portions. You don't need a whole mason jar full of stock at one time. This is pretty rich stock since I let it cook all night and cook down so much. So really, you put, I don't know, maybe a quarter cup of this stuff in a pot of beans, and it's going to flavor it pretty well, or soup or whatever. You can add a little water to it, and it's still going to have plenty of flavor. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and hope you learned something, or maybe you learned at least a new trick. And as always, feel free leave comments for me. Let me know if you got your own tips and tricks, and what you like to use stock for, or what you like to do with it. So as always, God bless, and thanks again for watching.